been designated National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And are you aware that 1 in 3 teenagers in the U.S. is a victim of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse from a dating partner? Welcome to Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. I am your host, Deniece Barnes. And here with me today is Lani Ramos. She is the Children's Crisis Counselor for the Family and Children's Services in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
Lani, welcome to Take 10 on Tuesdays.
Thank you so much.
Now, you have a wide variety of experience dealing with trauma and any terrible instances, if you will, with our youth. And that's one reason why I brought you here today. Could you just talk briefly on, first off, I want you to define, Lani, what is the meaning of teen dating abuse? And what are some of the signs that a person can tell if a teen is being physically abused?
Teen dating violence is very similar to what we consider maybe either intimate partner violence or domestic violence in its broadest category. Teen dating violence is, of course, applying to our youth, individuals, residents under the age of 18. So when somebody enters into a partnership, how controlling is it at first is usually the first initial signs. And what I mean by controlling is calling of who are your friends, what are your activities, what will get done in the relationship, what won't get done in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And there's usually a power and control issue before the actual violence occurs. Okay. So there's emotional abuse and verbal abuse, mm-hmm. and then of course ultimately leading to a violent incident, which could manifest in a physical altercation or in a sexual altercation.
Lani, it's quite unfortunate for any teen to have to experience such a terrible situation, but I want you to just zone in particularly on our African American teens. What's the statistics for teen dating abuse there?
Here in Nashville, it runs, from what I've been able to gather of the statistics, because now you have to understand, teens are a very underrated, underreported population. They don't come forward a lot of times with their situations. Mm-hmm. However, just generally, I average around 4 to 10 reports a month, and I know that that's a very understated statistic.
So much more is happening.
Yes, because what we do know is nationally,
mm-hmm.
Like you kind of stated, 1 in 3. Mm-hmm. However, how many of those actually get reported to the police department or actually seek services outside of that? Absolutely. But what we are able to recognize is that in the African American population, mm-hmm. it's actually a little bit more prevalent. Mm-hmm. It's what they kind of consider normal interaction, as far as dating rituals. And that is not, it's my job is to try and inform and to create much more healthy relationships.
Okay. Now, when you say that it's not reported mm-hmm. as much as it should be, mm-hmm. is there a sense of fear? The reason it's not that the kids are not reporting these abuses?
Some of it could be fear-based.
Okay.
Some of it is it's been normalized a lot in our media, mm-hmm. Also in our social conduct with our youth. Mm-hmm. When we have somebody, who is controlling or extremely jealous, yes. It's because he loves you so much.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of different ways
mm-hmm.
that the youth kind of normalize the situations for themselves.
Okay. Now, you also work closely with the Metro-Nashville Police Department here.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what you do concerning that.
Mm-hmm. Really what I do is I am the youth counselor, so I go out and I will do presentations, I will do one-on-one counseling. I get called to crime scenes if there's any youth that have either witnessed or been directly affected by, generally speaking, usually in domestic violence situations, although I have gone out on car accidents, car fatalities, and things of that nature before in the past. But my prevalent focus, my specialty, is actually in what we consider our domestic violence laws.
Okay. Now I want to talk briefly about product of a person's environment. Mm-hmm. Could this be teens who decide or end up in abusive relationships? Could it have come from maybe a parent being domestically abused or a guardian in the household as they were coming up, and maybe they in turn became a part of such an unfortunate situation?
Right. When we always are looking at abuse, is that we look at this kind of tolerance
mm-hmm.
issue. So if you are emotionally abused throughout growing up. And we're not even talking about, physically at this point, emotionally. So we know then when we enter into a relationship, there's a certain amount of language that we've already become tolerant to.
Yes.
So degrading remarks or put downs are just kind of the norm, even though when I'm looking at the buildup, I always recognize that that's the foundation right there. So when I'm looking at situations, so then we become tolerant of this inappropriate exchange of communication. It's not very healthy. A lot of times it's unsafe. I have parents all the time that tell their children, I brought you into this world, I'll take you out.
Exactly.
So when you're getting, even though I know that children don't always perceive that as a threat, somewhere in there is some type of biological chemical response that starts to occur in there. So you get these tolerance issues that start to occur from our messaging and the way that we talk to our children. So why would that be any different then if my boyfriend says, if you look at that guy, I'm going to take you out, or what'll happen.
Wow.
Even if it's not a direct threat. If your parents can make threats, then why shouldn't your partner not make threats to you?
And that's awful, so what you actually read into your children at young ages, it's embedded in their minds for a long, long time.
Yes. When I always look at the kind of environmental factors, we have these norms in our American society as, it's okay for a boy to hit you, that just means that he likes you. Wow. When we're talking about children on the playground situation.
Yes.
So why is that okay for a boy on the playground to hit you? See, we're already setting our children up for this type of violent interactions are normal.
Yes. And that's awful that they consider that as normal, because obviously you and I know that it's not.
Absolutely.
But as a little child, mom, dad knows best.
Yes.
So we grow to, accept those type of, things that's being taught to us. Again, we are speaking with Lani Ramos. She's had over 18 years of therapy, and she's worked a lot with children and abuse and trauma issues. She's the Children's Crisis Counselor for the Family and Children's Services. Texting, email, social media. Our teens experience that a lot. Talk to us a little bit about what are some of the signs that we need to look for regarding those types of things.
Yeah, that is actually one of our newest ways of looking at control or power and control. So because it makes a person so accessible, and it makes it so difficult to really set an appropriate boundary. We all know that youth love to text and IM each other and things of that nature. However, like in Facebook, all of a sudden your private world can become very public.
Absolutely.
So choosing your friends is very, very important. And if you ended up friending all of your boyfriend's friends, all of a sudden everybody knows the situation. You can get a lot of, how should I say this? I don't really want to say, maybe more psychological abuse. A lot of pressure. You need to go back with him. He's sorry. Situations that parents might not even be aware of that their children are facing because it's happening on, a 3x2 black box.
Absolutely.
So parents might not even realize how many people are actually influencing their children or their youth to be in these situations. So you've got that kind of going on. As well as if you do have a controlling partner, then you've got somebody who's got instant connection with you.
That's so correct.
To be able to keep track of you, where you are, who you are with. And your friend might not know, but if your friend has now befriended your boyfriend and you post everything on Facebook, well, now your boyfriend knows exactly where you are, or your ex-boyfriend knows exactly where you are.
And Lani, I don't have a problem with parents actually, if you will, managing or looking at these kids' text, computers, phones. Do you have a problem with that?
I have not a problem with that. I know that, we always are kind of swinging the pendulum in our parenting. Like, should we be permissive? Should we be relaxed? Or should we be authoritarian and controlling? And every child needs something different.
Absolutely.
And so there's not usually one type of parenting that reaches millions of children. So even with a parent, you have to always judge, what does your child need on an individual base and not just on the general, I've got 5 children so I treat them all the same.
I'm a staunch believer in communication.
Yes.
It's very important to communicate with your child or children, because if you don't, then where will they get this information from? The wrong place.
Right.
As you mentioned earlier, you're affiliated with the Metro Police Department. Share some thoughts about communication, Lani.
Communication, it is all based on where they are age-wise first. Okay, you know, what you share with a 5-year-old is not what you share with a 15-year-old.
Right.
However, that child is still 15. That child is not 25.
Right.
And so we still don't share detailed, excruciating amounts with a 15-year-old. There still needs to be some limitations in being able to draw those boundaries even as a parent. But even so, let's say that we're talking about a 15-year-old who's into a domestic violence or a dating violence relationship, and his or her parent is not in that situation. A parent, as soon as you say, don't go out with that person, we all know that's the open ground right there. So a parent has to be always accepting of the partnership. Support is probably what's needed most. Not that defined line of black and white, because these issues are not so black and white.
No,
they very much end up in the gray.
They are. Now, one thing that I want you to elaborate on, Lani, is there are so many teens out there, as you know very well, that are in abusive relationships, but we talked earlier about fear. How can that teen, if they're willing to reach out and tell someone, how can they do that?
A lot of teenagers, you know, because they're so fearful of their parents, like, oh, my mom told me not to date him, or my dad said don't go out with that person. And they've been doing it on the backside, and the relationship is still gone wrong. I always encourage the teenagers still to try and talk to the parent. If it's not, if the relationship right there, if that parent-child relationship is not fair or safe enough for that, look at friends. I always tell most of the friends that are having other friends in these situations, they're like, it's so hard to be a friend to that person. But I always encourage them, stay there, keep that communication open, be there, because your friend is going to need or want you.
Oh, yes.
And so to remain consistent always. And then of course there's always community places. A lot of being anonymous, like an anonymous caller usually helps, like when you're calling like the Oasis Center, or calling, even teenagers can call the Domestic Violence Division and just ask to speak to a counselor. No name is ever needed, just to actually do that telephone contact.
Okay. Lani, you've actually given us a wealth of information regarding teen abuse. It's not just for February viewers. We should all be conscious of our teens, because they're our next generation, our youth. So again, we had Lani Ramos. She's the Children's Crisis Counselor for the Family and Children's Services. Lani, how can my viewers learn more?
You can always go on tmblue.org, which is the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic Violence and Sexual Abuse. That's their website, and get more information. loveisrespect.org is also another really good website. And then here locally, calling the Oasis Center. I don't know if you're familiar with their number, but calling the Oasis Center, or even calling the Domestic Violence Division at 880-3000.
Okay. Lani, I want to say thank you so much. You've been great, and welcome to the first one, the second one rather, but I will be back in touch with you again, because this is a very, very serious topic and we cannot have enough discussion on it. Again, Lani Ramos with the Family and Children's Services. She's the Children's Crisis Counselor. I want to say thanks again for coming and being a guest on Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune.
Thank you, Deniece.